What's up, cuties? It's Fumi Abe. Come see my stand-up comedy hour. Los Angeles, June 20th. New York City, July 7th. Toronto, July 8th. Seattle, July 15th. Get tickets at fumiabe.com. Hope to see you there. Bye.
Welcome to Cash Cuties, a personal finance. Are you talking about that part?
Yeah, whatever you want, because we can't do it together anymore. So.
Oh, what? Oh, I see. Okay. Welcome to Cash Cuties, a personal finance. Oh, I'm sorry. Welcome to
You haven't done it in 2 weeks, and now you forgot everything? Do you even know who I am?
Stop. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Cash Cuties, a super personal finance podcast where we analyze our friends' credit card statements and judge their spending habits with love. I'm Steffie Bake.
And I am Fumi Abe.
If you're listening on your Apple Pod app, please leave us a review. Hit follow on Spotify, and sub to our YouTube channel for the video version of this podcast. All the links are available in the episode description below.
And these subscriptions, we're going up. I think we're like 1.65K. So help us reach 10,000. That's our goal. I would love for us to have one of those like YouTube plaques someday. You know what I'm talking about? Those YouTube plaques?
Bro!
That'd be sick. And then we would sell that probably because that means nothing to us. But it would be nice to have some silver in our household.
Oh my God.
As the economy is crashing.
So amazing. That would be like, what are we? 999,000
away. I think you need 100,000. It's 100, right? I think it's 100. I think we need 100,000 for silver.
Okay.
Anyways, help us get there, man.
Yeah, let's
I think we can do
it.
it. And honestly, the reviews have been slow recently. And guys, these reviews really matter, especially on Spotify and Apple. So if you have an iPhone, please take 2 seconds. Just pause this right now. Leave a review. You can just like put some gibberish there if you want. But if it's funny and if it's cute, we'll read it on the podcast, and then you get more attention.
Do emojis.
Moving on. Yes. Moving on. Let's give a shout out to our donor daddies. These are people who give us money on Patreon. What is Patreon? It is the best way to support this podcast. In exchange for your donation, we give you bonus episodes and behind the scenes content that Steffi posts on a regular basis. And we use this money for operating costs and like rental fees and also our hard work. You know, we put a lot of money into this and time into this. And Steffi is coming live at you today from like Serbia or wherever the fuck she is right now. Like she's everywhere, bro. And it's crazy. So that's what this is. We had 2 people donate this week. So shout out to John C for $5 and Ashlyn L, who was already a donator person or donor, but she upped it from $5 to $10. So thank you guys so much. And if you want to shout out on the podcast and get bonus content, go to patreon.com/cashcutiespod.
That is so funny. When you said donor, like it sounds like egg donor, sperm donor. I guess they
donor,
are donors,
yeah.
right?
We also
That's
take
cool.
sperm, by the way. If anybody was ever confused, if people are like, I don't have $5, you can give us eggs or sperm. You can mail that to
Eggs is way more money, dude.
Is it really? Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure. Eggs, you get much more money for eggs. It's like, I think an egg is like more than $10,000, something like that.
For one egg.
Yeah, something like one egg.
But what if
I might be making?
But what if it's good
do the
sperm?
finances of that.
Of what? Well, I don't want to do the IVF because that gets too sad. But I want to do like sperm donation and egg donation. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Jizz versus egg. By the way, every time I tell our friends, every time I tell people what this podcast is about, I'm always like, yeah, it's like this personal, it's like a funny personal finance podcast. But then like, as I'm editing these episodes, I'm like, this podcast is mainly about cum, is what I'm realizing. You know what I'm saying? We mainly talk about jizzing and fucking and sucking.
There is a lot of sexual shit we talk about. We don't mean to. I'm gonna say it's because of your comedy, your spanking comedy, and your Japanese.
My spanking comedy, my Japanese-ness. Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Okay. Well, I want to know. I have a question for you. I haven't seen you in a couple weeks. How are you doing financially, Fumi?
I'm doing okay. I got a residual check recently, which saved my ass, which is amazing. But I went to Vegas a couple weeks ago, and I had this little financial encounter. And it was a really small one, but it bothered me so much it like kind of ruined my trip. And I wanted to get your take on it. So I go to we drive to Vegas, right? Because we wanted to do that. It's a short drive. We wanted to do that drive because it's kind of pretty. So we go there and we get to the hotel a little early. And I don't know what's going on. I mean, I don't know how it is in Europe, but I feel like hotels these days, they don't let you check in until like sometimes like 4. It's like when I was younger, it used to be like noon, and then it was like 1. And now it's like sometimes 5 for Airbnbs. Like, it's fucking crazy. So we got there and like we weren't able to check in, but we had all this stuff on us, and we're like, why don't we just like let them have this, like let them hold our stuff, and then we'll come back. In a regular hotel, you can just do that for free. But at this spot, you have to go to like the bell door or whatever, the bellman. And they take it for you, and they're really nice, and they give you restaurant recommendations. And then at the end, you're supposed to tip them, right? You're supposed to tip them. And I didn't know that, so I wasn't going to. But then Maria was like, you have to tip. Like, she was like, you have to fucking tip this guy. And I was like, fine.
Wait,
so
hold on.
I look at
you didn't know you had to tip them?
I thought you tip them when they come to your door. Like, you know what I mean? Like, in this scenario, you have to tip twice. Once when you give them your shit, and another when they bring it up. I knew you're supposed to tip when they bring it up to your room. Yeah. But I didn't know you're supposed to tip when you give them the stuff. You know what I mean?
No, you only do it when you're talking about like at the front, right? And then they grab the bags, and then you go up.
So because it's vague, so like what we did is we gave them the stuff, walked around for a couple hours, and then came back into our rooms, called them, and then they brought back our stuff. So obviously I know you're supposed to tip them if they come to your room. I didn't know you're supposed to tip them when you give them the luggage in the first place. And it wasn't at the front desk. You had to go to a separate section where it's like a door, the door people work, and it looked kind of, I mean, it was a different, I know what you're picturing. It's not like I gave the front desk person money. This was like a separate window where they only take people's bags. And like, yeah, maybe tipping was the vibe, but I was like, I don't want to tip twice. So I wasn't going to, but then Maria was like, yeah, tip him. I was like, fine. So I was like, okay, I'll give him like $2 or something. I look at my wallet and I say, oh man, I only have a $5. And I think I say something like, could you maybe break this or something? Oh. Right? I said, could you break this? But this doorman, I think he knew what he was doing. He fucking judoed me. He fucking did this. He goes, oh wow, $5. That's so much. So by saying that, he sort of like purposely misinterpreted what I meant by being like, oh, I only have $5. Like, I'm going to give you $5. When I actually said like, can you break my $5? I think he thought I said, can you take my $5? Or like something. He kind of did this acting thing. And he was like, oh, that's so much. Thank you. He thanked me. So I had to give him $5. Right? And then,
you didn't want to ask him. You didn't want to ask for the money back.
No, because he already did his fucking Shakespeare thing, and I was like, I don't want to be like, no, you're wrong. What I meant to do was to get change and give you $2. So then I give him $5, and I'm like bitching about it. Right now we go get lunch. After we come back, we go to the hotel room. We call the bell desk guy. They come up. It's like, so the guy I dealt with was a white guy, and the guy that came to our room was like this like really nice brown guy. But Maria and I didn't have cash, so we only had $1. So we gave this guy who came up to a room only $1, but this fucking sicko white guy $5, and I felt so like annoyed about the whole situation. He tricked me. He tricked me with the tip. Has that ever happened to you?
I feel situations where yes and no. I would have asked, even after that awkwardness. I'm kind of so cheap.
You
that
really would have asked.
Like,
okay, what would you?
Oh no, I meant sorry. I actually don't. I would. This is true. If that was like only $5, I'd be like, oh, I need the rest for like a different tipping situation. Sorry. Do you mind?
I should have said that. I should have said I need the rest for the other guy. Fuck, dude.
But it's more interesting that you did that, Fumi. And you're I don't know why I was going to call you a cuck for some reason.
Yeah, I was being like all beta about it. But I think it's like, you know, we always talk about like money is awkward. And when like, it's almost like whoever makes that first move wins. So because he said, oh, thank you. That's his chess move, right? He made the first move.
Oh, man.
And so I had to sort of like surrender. I know.
That really sucks. I feel you on that one. I feel the energy and the awkwardness there.
The awkwardness, man.
Especially the $1 guy. Also the $1 guy. That's just embarrassing.
It's so embarrassing.
It's embarrassing because you're like, it makes you, no matter what, just makes you look cheap. Not even like,
oh yeah,
it's not about poorness. It's just you're huge cheapo.
I made Maria give him $1 because I was
Oh
like,
my God!
I was like, at least you're cute,
Through me?
and maybe. No. With Maria, I was like, at least you're cute. Like, you can just go be nice and be girly for a second. I'm being super sexist right now, but I had to. These were crazy times. I had no money, so I had to pay him and other things. You know.
That's really nice of her. Was she down to do it? Does she not care?
No, but like she did it for me because she was like, "You're right. I think if a man did it, it's gonna make him like sadder." So she was like, "I'll just do it." So she did it and gave him a big smile and $1. While the white guy took $5. Anyways, so that kind of like put a damper on my whole trip, and I was in Vegas and I was kind of annoyed about it. But that's how I'm doing financially. I'm still chronically stingy. This is who I am. How about you? How are you doing financially?
So I don't know if you remember this. I started selling my clothes, and
I remember this.
I made some money, and I really wanted to talk about that. So I decided in this episode, we are going to be talking about the finances of thrifting and reselling clothes.
Yay!
Yeah!
Yay!
Like, you know, and I know when I was going through this with you, you kind of had some questions because you don't necessarily always do this or have done this. Have you tried any sort of resale of clothes before?
I know
you purchased it. Oh, you have?
Yeah,
okay.
but I mean, you know, it's interesting. I'm actually not like it's a very new thing for me. Like when I first moved to New York, like Beacon's Closet was like a huge thing, but I never went there. I never went to Buffalo Exchange. Like I'm familiar with all these things, but something about thrifting, I think I don't know what it is. It's kind of problematic, but I think I like new things, so I never even really considered it. But I have gone to sell stuff in the past.
And we're going to actually get into why you feel that way, the psychology a bit.
Okay.
And I could tell you maybe that this may be a reason, because I think a lot of our listeners feel similarly. Okay, so I wanted to first go into the definition of thrifting here. Thrifting is usually a donation-based shop like Goodwill or Salvation Army. That's usually when you're like, hey, I'm going to go thrift. That's where you go purchase these. Resell is when a company like Buffalo Exchange or Crossroads or Wasteland, Depop, Beacon's Closet, they buy your items up front and they pay you with cash or store credit. Now there's online forms of this like Poshmark or The RealReal, which is like a high-end luxury form of resale. Consignment is another form of resale of secondhand clothes, which is where you consign your clothes. You leave your clothes typically at a brick and mortar, and once the item sells, that's when you get a percentage for the items that was just sold.
Yeah, same. I've never heard of that actually.
I feel like it was when I first started thrifting and doing resale and all that stuff, I went on like a binge like on Yelp trying to just find every place I could to be able to do this. And I was almost like running it as a business, which is, I forgot about that. I want to talk about that a bit. And consignment is like, I think more of an old school thing. Less people are doing that. And it has like every consignment store I went to was like run by like old little lady. Mm-hmm. And like, it was
so
just
it's not
like
cool.
Consignment specifically, I just haven't seen many places. And I think a lot of them closed down. Specifically consignment, where you just like give you leave your pieces of clothing or your items. You know where they have a lot of that is, if you go to like Ventura County or Palm Springs or places outside of Los Angeles, where I think there's just more space, you'll find these like antique shops where it's broken into like 100 different spaces and people consign. But these are like typically elderly, what I've seen is elderly community, you know, people who have like retired.
This is fascinating. So it's like, because when you described this to me, I was picturing like sort of like a Portlandia sketch where like it's a really small store and you have to pay like $1,000 to have like one shelf.
Yeah,
but you're saying like it's actually more common like in the antique and the elder community.
Yes,
like it's actually it's not very cool. Oh, interesting. Okay.
But you know, there's like a weird coolness to that type of antiquing too. it's very niche.
Sure.
Like going out there, like if you want unique 60s, 50s, 30s pieces, you can't really find them in LA unless you're going to, buy for an exorbitant amount. So people take these trips and they go thrifting. They'll, drive to some place like between here and like San Francisco, some city I don't like know the name of, and they'll do this because it's more normal there.
That's cool.
So that's another form. And then there's like this other one that's more unique. I've only seen one of these shops. It's called Redress. And it's where you rent a rack for $100 a week and you sell, and then when you sell your piece, or pieces on that rack, you give 50% of the purchase to the brick and mortar and you keep the rest. And this is typically a Nordic style of reselling second-hand clothing. And I think
like
that's really
Sweden?
Cool. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So,
I was confusing this with consignment. These are different.
They're different, but I think I think some of these there is like they lap a mix of these things.
So this can be cool if like you have a following or something and people are like, I want to dress like Steffie. I think it actually can be quite profitable if you like, if I knew that if I want to dress like you, can go to this place and dress like Steffie. But then the other thing is, I bet it's half clothing enthusiasts and then half fucking creepos who want to smell your shit.
Yeah, Fumi, that's you, huh? I was like, my head did not go there, but yes, I do think that you're right. We should have a Cash Cuties, like a little
Cash Cuties
rack.
thing. It's on my underwear.
Scratch and sniff before purchasing. Yes, yeah, we'll put that. Okay, do you know Depop? That's kind of like the Gen Z and millennial like online version of resale. That like it's an app. Well, they had a brick and mortar, and I don't know if they still have it. But they used to have one in LA and one in New York. And they had part of their marketing when they created the brick and mortar pop-up or whatever, they had like influencers have little racks. So kind of do what you're talking about.
Yeah.
To bring business. But I don't know if it's doing well, the brick and mortar version. Not sure. Anyways, let's get into like, who's buying this stuff? And I found the stats fascinating. The types of people who buy. 18 to 24-year-olds are the most frequent thrift store shoppers, with 40% of them visiting thrift stores within a month.
That's crazy.
Is it?
Is this and I know you don't have stats like historical data, but do you feel like this is what it is now, or do you think it's always been like this?
No, I think this is a new thing, and I think it has. And I'm going to tell you why in a minute why I think the Gen Zers are doing this. 62% of Gen Z and millennial consumers say they look for items secondhand before buying it new.
Wow.
And almost half, isn't that interesting? And almost half of Gen Z and millennial consumers, 46%, consider the potential resale value of an item before purchasing it. So these consumers are second guessing before purchasing whether they can sell it. And I think they're being more aware.
Smart.
They're like they're being aware shoppers.
I think they don't want to buy junk. And I think that makes sense because in my generation, fast fashion was very much a thing, and it was we were buying a lot of junk. We were buying H&M t-shirts for $5, with zero resale value. Yeah,
exactly. Interestingly, baby boomers are responsible for 50% of all money spent at thrift stores and resale stores, which I thought was also very interesting. That would be like our parents.
Money.
Yeah, of all the actual money, because they have money.
I wonder what that means. Like, is it not that they're going that frequently, but it's more just like they're buying like furniture or like more expensive things?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like just on an anecdotal level, when I go into any of these like Salvation Armies, I feel like it's usually like funky. I don't want to use the word funky, but
no,
they're definitely like off. It's like offbeat weirdos. Like I'm one of them, right? But like offbeat people that are like over the age of 45, like or 50 or something. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like they're always like wearing mismatched clothes. They don't know fashion. Like when I go into these shops, I do see the younger generation, like the Gen Zers with good fashion purchasing shit. And then I see like randos that are older who are like my, you know, weird uncles with random jobs, like going in there and like purchasing things. And
I can see that.
I think they're the ones that are like going on eBay and reselling these things. That's what I think. Or it's like they're collectors or they like, you know, they're veterans and they find meaning.
Go ahead.
I was going to say like they're veterans who like find meaning. I'm the type of person, like I find meaning when I purchase things. Like I find like, oh, I like thinking about like the essence of like who is wearing it. What are the vibes of this person? Like sometimes I want to find treasures in their pocket, and I don't know, like something about that, right? Which was why some people don't want to purchase secondhand.
So you don't think there are people going thrifting who are legitimately like, I'm just going to buy new clothes, and like they're not trying to be cool. They're just going there because that's what they can afford.
No, I do. I definitely think that's true too. Is that it is way more affordable, right? It is a way to buy things with more with your money, right? Than if you were to buy it brand new, depending on what it is. So 50% of U.S. consumers expect to buy secondhand over the next 5 years. So this is really growing as a way of purchasing clothes. So thrifting is a sustainable shopping trend. Many people see thrifting as a greener alternative to fast fashion industry that we grew up seeing, right? Like with the Forever 21s, the H&Ms. But I learned that thrifting actually, as popular as it is right now, it dates back to the 17th century. With secondhand, I know.
That's
I was
crazy.
blown. I know. So they're saying back in the day, secondhand clothes dealers, well, at least the written history in English that we can find that I know of is they noticed in history that like the secondhand dealers were in Venice. It started in Venice, Italy. And in the 18th century, it became more common in urban areas with clothing, typically being brought in from domestic servants that would receive gifts of cast-off clothes.
What's that mean? What's a cast-off clothes?
I don't want to say for sure, but I think sometimes you're given clothes during. Actually, I don't want to say. I don't know. I don't know.
This is so funny because I'm literally picturing like hipsters in Italy in the year 1600 fucking being like, did you get that like Mongolian hat from 1300? Like that's the thrifting. That's so great. Like think about the stuff that we think are cool now, like that are vintage. Yeah. But there are these people in the 1700s who are like wanting things from like the year 1490. Like that's incredible. Right.
Well, you know what I think kind of, I know in that time, like when the servants were sometimes gifted from the, I guess, are they called the owners? I don't know. This like it sounds problematic now, but the slave owners, they would sometimes gift like their slaves pieces of clothing, but these slaves unfortunately couldn't wear it. Like they're not, it doesn't serve them because they can't work in it. So what they would do is they'd resell the pieces of clothing for money.
Oh my God. That's what this is? That's wow. Yeah. What a dramatic history.
Yes, it's really dramatic.
So much drama, dude.
Yes. And then so in the early 19th century, it started gaining a lot of popularity during the Great Depression, when people were struggling to make ends meet and couldn't buy clothes at full price. So that's when charitable organizations became sellers. Like the Salvation Army was created, I think, in I want to say 1897, something like that. And but at by 2020, the thrift store industry reached the revenue of $10.5 billion. In 2020.
And when you say thrift here, you're not talking about the Buffalo Exchange. This is about Salvation Army and Goodwill.
No, it's all, I believe, yes. Yeah, you're right. For this, I think it's, no, it's all secondhand resale. It's resale as well as thrifting. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
And this market is projected to double in the next 5 years and will be twice as big as the fast fashion market by 2030. Isn't that crazy?
Twice as big as the fast fashion. Oh, so you're saying like within the next, 5 to 7 years, more people will be buying resale and stuff like that compared to people seeking out like a t-shirt from Uniqlo or something like that.
Yes.
Wow.
The industry,
I believe
fashion,
it 100%.
Yes.
I believe it.
The resale market generated $28 billion in 2020 and is expected to reach $65 billion within the next 5 years.
Just for reference, the global fast fashion market is at $106 billion, just for reference. So it's not like, it's about half of that, which is pretty crazy because, I can't really, I always thought, the fast fashion industry was like tenfold bigger than the used clothing sort of market, but it's only about half, which is crazy, which sort of speaks like the speed at which it's growing.
I think it's going to shift where they might change spaces. And there's all these docs now, like I'm sure you've heard of True Waste on Netflix.
No, what's
and if
that?
You they go into like the factory workers and like how much money is actually being tossed out. Like, guess how much dollars is wasted in textiles, just generally, like fabric.
What do you mean
that's
by
not
wasted,
used.
though? What do you mean?
Like no one's using that textile. It is literally like thrown away to the abyss.
And is that because like a company like H&M will buy a bunch to make t-shirts, but they didn't sell enough, so now they're just this left over? I have no idea. I don't know.
In the U.S., specifically in the U.S., it's $100 billion
worth of wasted materials.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Isn't that insane? It's just sitting somewhere. And a lot of this stuff is made out of these fabrics, these fake fabrics, like acrylic and polyester that are not degradable. They're not biodegradable. So that's why there's like
Atsuko was talking about this, about how like there's like somewhere in California there's like a mountain of just H&M t-shirts because they can't they don't decompose and they don't know what to do. It's like a landfill. It just goes in a fucking landfill.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Isn't that crazy? And less than 1% of the textiles produced for clothing is recycled into any new clothing. So they're not doing anything with this shit. 35. You see that, right? You. That's what I mean. Like, there's all these docs, and like people are aware of this now and the damage it's doing to our environment. This episode was sponsored by an anonymous vegan who invites listeners to try eating plant-based for the animals and planet. It seems like everyone is going through layoffs these days, Fumi. Did you notice that?
Yeah, it's mad scary.
If that's you, listen up. You might be entitled to more rights than you know.
When you get laid off, your employer is probably going to make you sign an NDA before they finalize your layoff, and your company is going to pressure you to sign this document and tell you that if you don't, they're not going to give you your final paycheck. But you should talk to a professional before doing so.
Did you know that you can negotiate your severance pay? Do not accept it right away. It is tempting, but they're going to lay you off, so you need to get as much as you can.
There's also something called the Wage Transparency Law that just passed in March of 2023, which allows you to freely discuss your compensation with your coworkers out in the open to see if you are getting paid around the same or if there's some sort of wage discrimination. You need to know your worth.
If you have any questions about employment issues or layoffs, contact Brianna Kim PC, your Korean lawyer friend, and get some advice. She works on contingencies, so it's free until your case is won. Go to KoreanLawyerFriend.com or leave a voicemail at 714-482-6301. Don't forget to mention Cash Cuties when you reach out. Yeah, well, we can go into now the fun bit more of the fun part now that we are educated in this thrifting.
Yeah,
and we're not telling
smarter.
I'm not telling any Cash Cutie to go thrifting. Like and I'm not shaming you for like purchasing.
But it's important to know this, I think.
I think it's just like, this is just knowledge that you should be aware of. And with that information, do as you please.
Yes.
But I personally love thrifting, and I do feel like I'm doing something for the environment. Like every country I go to, it is like one of my top 3 things I have to do. I have to go to a museum. I have to go thrift shopping. Like it's, I love seeing what's being resold in every country, and it's so different in every country. I do notice things.
When did you get into thrifting and stuff? Is this because, like, I know you're into fashion now, but like, were you into it as a middle schooler? Because, you know, you said earlier, you said 40% of people are going to these thrifting places are 18 to 24. You know, sometimes when I go to Melrose and I go to these places, I bought like a vest a couple months ago, that camo one that I've worn like a bunch of times. In line in front of me was a 13-year-old boy buying like a used Supreme t-shirt, and it was like $100, and he just had $100 bill in his pocket. It was the most, I mean, it was very LA, like this kid is very rich, but Maria and I were talking about how like, oh my God, like none of my friends did that shit in high school. You know, we were all going like Abercrombie or Hollister, like it just wasn't. So like, when did you get into it, and was it always sort of from an environmental angle? You can be honest. You can be honest.
I know. Yeah. I'm always honest on here.
Because I guess what I'm saying is that boy that bought the Supreme t-shirt, I don't think he was like, this one's for the fucking Dolphins. You know what I'm saying? Like, he wanted to get laid. He's not doing it because buying a t-shirt from H&M means you're sticking a bubble tea straw in a turtle's nose. You know?
But yeah. I actually wonder if, not him, but I do think that there is something about Gen Z who's just much more aware with, you know, with social media and like information just like traveling so fast, and like think like what the teachers who are now people our age, and like, you know, they are, I think, doing their best to like educate these kids about global warming and like sustainability, things that I don't think in my public school, we barely talked about those things. Those things were not important things.
You know what?
Right?
You're so good at not judging people. Maybe that kid was doing it for the environment and to get head. Maybe he had, can you be horny? Can you be horny for the environment and pussy? 100%. And who am I to judge him?
Oh my God. Saving the dolphins while getting head. Love it.
Put that on a t-shirt.
I actually think I've been thrifting. Okay. I've been wearing secondhand in a unconventional way that I think actually it's not that unconventional. It's just never framed in the way that it's secondhand, is my grandparents and my mom's clothing since I was young. I've always had such an attachment to clothes and material items. And I remember, like, if my grandma came to my house, it was just like the day before she would leave, I just always felt so anxious and insecure. I'm talking about like when I was like 6 or 7 years old. I would always have to take like a piece of her clothing plus a piece of my own clothing and shove it like in a corner in the house so that no one would try to find it and wash it. There was this weird thing I had with like, yeah, I know. There was something about like the essence of us having to stay together.
It's the clothes you were wearing when you were hanging out with your grandma.
Yes, preserved? Like the day. Yes, the day
of. Okay.
That touched her clothes.
Oh, that's so interesting and
Isn't
like
that
freaky,
weird?
but like in a cute
It's creepy.
way. Like, so you just sort of like, how do you steal her clothes like that?
I mean, it's better than hair, right? It's better than hair.
It's way better than hair. But so do you wait until she takes a bath and you just like sneak in there and you take her fucking dress?
I take a sock and my grandma's like, "Where's some?" I'm like, "Those damn washers. I don't know." And she's like, "No, I don't know. I just I would take like something of hers. Like I had to do that. What is that called when you steal? Kleptomania. Like you're a hoarder.
Yeah, but you're not stealing from a business. It's different.
Yeah. So I had that habit for a while. Like I couldn't not. I thought something bad was going to happen if I didn't. And I know that's a form of OCD. I just am hoarding that. But I was able to kick it like when I got into high school or like during high school or a little after high school.
Anyways, what kind of stores were you going to in high school? I was not a big fashion person on myself, but I was always the stylist for everyone else in my family and my friends. So I did not personally shop that much for myself. And if it was, I had to be very, very conservative
I had to be the clothes had to be discreet, and I wouldn't shop vintage because I don't think I was aware of what that was. I had gone to swap meets. I had been to swap meets and I would buy like hairpins and things like that, but never a secondhand shop. And it wasn't until I was in my long-term, I was in an 8-year relationship and I was with this guy. And at the beginning of it, I was also reselling Nespresso pod. You know, like those coffee pods?
Yes.
Yes. There used to be this like accessory, a Nespresso pod holder that you could purchase, like these long things you put the pods into.
Yeah.
That I started importing, exporting those from China and reselling.
Wait, for money?
Yeah, for money. Yeah.
Wait, what the fuck?
Yeah.
When did you do this?
Yeah.
Before real estate?
Yeah, before real estate, in between real estate, and during, like the beginning, like the first.
Oh my god!
It was probably like a year before.
You sound like the cousin from Beef right now, like getting into weird Chinese export-import business.
Yeah. I had a friend who became really successful. My friend, I actually helped him buy multiple real estate properties because he was reselling a bunch of different things. That is still from college. I met him in college. And so he's kind of the one that got me into it. And I was like, oh shit, I could like start a business. I could like, I just did it. I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. So he taught me about importing, exporting, and he had to help me with the Chinese because everything was in Chinese. Yeah. I also had to learn it, but that's when I learned about the holidays and how they take time off during certain parts of the year.
I know your ex-boyfriend was Taiwanese or Chinese or something. Is this how you met him during a trade?
No. Taiwanese. No. He was an ABC, American born. Like he didn't know it. He couldn't speak it or anything really.
Gotcha.
But while I was doing that, I got really, really good at selling things on eBay. And while I was doing that, I started selling other shit that I had around the house. And he was a kid who loved buying designer things when he was in like middle school and high school. Like he would save up all his money and he would like travel to Japan and he'd buy things, right? Secondhand actually. So I had these like old, he didn't want them anymore. We were moving. So he's like, you want to sell these things? You could have it. So I had all these Louis Vuitton Prada things that were like, the leather could be like in the shittiest condition, like worn in, the leather's falling off, and people were buying it for like $250, $300. They were bidding up for it. And that's when I learned the power of bidding and auction. Because I would take, and that's when I got really, really into negotiating, and why I loved, that was always my favorite part of real estate, is negotiating the purchase of a home for anybody, or when selling a property, getting the best deal for my clients. I seriously got it from all of that, and also like my mom just always being really thrifty. Bro,
I feel like I'm sitting in a like a scam seminar about like sales or something.
Nothing scammy. It was all legit. That's the beauty of it. It's all legit.
Okay. Continue.
Am I teaching you how to get into it? Like, so I sold some of his things. That's when I learned, and then obviously we broke up. I started dating other guys, and there's this one guy that I really was just like the most toxic person I ever dated. I talked about him on our pod before, the guy that wears all the chrome heart.
The chrome hearts?
He had a small fashion company that he had started, and which was fucking ugly, by the way. But I didn't say that, of course.
Shots fired.
I, supported it all the way as a girl who dated. I just dated him. I wasn't someone I dated long term. And I took his pieces of clothing and I sold like probably 15 to 20 pieces of all, because he would just give it to me, and because like I would support it and I was wearing it, and I was like,
wait, this literally is like his company's clothes or his personal clothes?
His company, like his brand's clothes. He would just give me, and he like test out pieces, sample pieces, and then like I would model them basically,
and then you'd sell them.
Influencer
That's so
shit.
Mean.
No, he was a piece of shit. So like he was actually
But this
like
is after you
one of the
broke up
worst.
or during?
Yes, after. No,
Okay,
after.
okay.
So that's when I was like, I need to like do some like, I need to be vindicated. So what I did is I didn't go in LA. I went to Orange County. So I wasn't that much of an asshole because I didn't want him to see that I was selling all his pieces of clothing. And I sold all his stuff to Second Street, which is like a Japanese clothing brand. They love like streetwear, and his stuff was kind of streetwear vibes. And I made probably over $200 off his pieces of stupid clothing.
Was that worth it? How did that feel?
It felt really good because he just was not a good, like he was like one of the, just not an unhealthy relationship
You
that
think
we had.
okay? So you at that point you were like,
at that point,
$200 is worth me getting emotionally abused.
Yeah, he was so wild. He like, there was a point where I almost got a restraining order against him. Like that's how bad it was.
Oh my god! There was something like that's very. So go ahead.
Well, no, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, sorry. I hate Zoom because I'm not trying to talk over you, but it's delayed, so you can finish that sentence.
No, it's okay. It's you know me. I'm not someone who speaks badly of people, but it was just not good, and so I felt like vindicated when I sold some of the stuff that he had. I would love to hear This is a very interesting thing that you touched upon about selling your ex-boyfriend shit is a very funny and real industry. I feel like everybody should be doing that. I mean, I don't have an ex because I've only been with one person, but like, especially if they fucked you over, there's something funny about like jacking their shit before you leave their place. And just selling it on eBay or whatever, like make some money out of it. Even if it's $300, you know, hey, that's a nice meal out with you and your friends. That's great. Exactly.
You know? That's
okay.
Just
Okay. Can I say there was a red flag off the jump when I dated this guy? He told me off the top, like we were just dating, and he was like, when he was giving me the pieces, he's like, hey, promise me you'll never resell this stuff. That was a red flag. Who the fuck even says that? This must have happened to him multiple times. Because he's a piece of shit. This must have been happening to him. So that was a red flag, and that's why I did it even more after.
What did you say though when he said that? What did you say to him?
I was like, no, of course. At the moment, I didn't think that he was a piece of shit. I didn't know.
Of course
so I was like,
not.
But of course not. If you are a piece of shit, and I know from the top, but I want to have fun, I'm gonna take your nice pieces. So be aware.
Yeah,
I'm putting that red flag.
Like Gucci suits.
Yeah,
that's so funny, man.
Yeah. You know, one thing I haven't done, which a lot of girls I've heard do, is you know when you get gifted something by an ex or boyfriend, like selling that. I for some reason like cherish the gifts I get, whether I guess I don't hate any of my exes. Yeah. I've never.
But you know
resold.
what you said? This is your love language, so that makes so much sense.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Even if it's from like a horrible person, it's still a love language, so you keep it.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, therapy.
Interesting. Therapy. Mental health.
But that could get confusing because it's like, even if the person is like really shitty to you, the language he's speaking via gifts is love to you. So it's like a conflicting. I wonder if you have any conflicting objects around your house. You're like, oh, listen, this watch my boyfriend got me, but he cheated on me or he like assaulted me or whatever, but you can't sell it because you love the concept of gifts, you know?
I know. And you're right, Fumi. I should really I really think that it's very important to release some of these like things and hoarding tendencies. But it is just so, I don't know. It's like part of my nature. I'm going to say that it's passed down like as like a gene. It's like in my genetics. Like I can't blame any, like it's hard for me to let go of things. Talking about heritage and things like that. I want to talk about thrifting and the culture of it as in because we're Asian. I want to talk about Asians and thrifting and secondhand. Okay. You mentioned something, which is you said that you feel weird about the clothes, right? About purchasing?
I think conceptually it's not something I grew up doing. Like my parents never took me to a secondhand shop. I knew like around high school when I would go back to Japan, like I saw like, we call them in Japanese, we say hurugi. Hurugi means like old clothes. It's just like used clothing or resale. And they were like very cool. So I knew that it wasn't, I think that was the first time I realized, oh, it doesn't, like resale doesn't have to mean, you know, Salvation Army, because I went to Salvation Army in Ohio with my high school friends because some of my friends like to do that shit. And I always went in there and be like, oh, it smells weird in here. Like there's nothing really good. Like, you have to like really search for shit. A lot of it to me was like, they don't have my size, was like a lot of it when I was younger, because I'm like a smaller person. And I was like, oh, they only have like these big t-shirts and I don't want to wear like these loose, because this is back in the 2000s when like tight shit was in. So I was like, I need my shit tight. I need my V-necks tight. And it just like,
You're in the
like I
boy
think
section.
I'm in boy section, so I think a lot of it just didn't make sense to me. You know, from different angles. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But you know, I want to ask, and wondering if this is something maybe you notice, is that Asians are wary of secondhand and they see it as traditionally taboo. So I was wondering if that's why you grew up feeling like there's some sort of weird association with purchasing pieces that were used by somebody else.
I think like I would be curious to see how like each Asian country or culture like takes that. I think specifically with like Japanese culture, there's always been some sort of like shade against used anything. I think I've said on this podcast before, like used cars in Japan are extremely cheap. Homes do not gain in value over time. You could actually YouTube, like there's these like European guys who go to Japan and buy like an older home for like $5,000, like in the middle of nowhere.
I saw
like,
that. Those guys that who renovate, white people that renovate these amazing houses.
These homes. Yeah,
Bro,
yeah.
I'm like, is this like normal in the nice parts of Japan also, in Tokyo?
What happens is because I know this because my father has a house that he grew up in. Nobody lives there because his brothers moved out, and also my grandma is in a old person's home. But I was like, why don't you just like, can we live there, or can that just be a home? And he was like, no, the only thing valuable in a house is the land. And so he was like, what happens if someone else buys it? They destroy the house. This house is not that old. This house is probably from the 70s or 60s, which in America is nothing, right? In New York and LA, I used to live in an apartment that was like 100 years old. You know, you look at our lease and you'll see in the contract like the number's 1892 or some shit, because they're so old. So it's just like, we just don't have an affinity for like old things. We love new things. I think there's a lot of like environmental things that Japan does that's like kind of problematic because of these cultural tendencies. But I don't know if it was bad luck. I just think it's more like we just don't do used things. We buy nice things. We buy new things if you can.
Okay. So this is what I learned from some research and talking to my friends. I noticed that this is something that I didn't grow up with. I know that in Asian society, we see secondhand clothes as like a superstitious belief that wearing pre-owned clothes is unlucky. There's a societal stigma of wearing these pieces because they feel as if someone else's energy is still within the clothes. And we are now taking on the clothes' energy, and we have no idea what kind of energy situations they were in, right?
Yes.
There's a superstitious belief that wearing it is unlucky. And because of the recent surge in demand for thrifting, this is being challenged. This notion of secondhand is being challenged. Historically, resale sites have faced difficulties expanding into Asian markets due to the ingrained cultural preference for new items.
Wow.
And the shopping for luxury goods firsthand. As the first preferred choice, consumers have begun moving away from using brands as markers of societal class. And now there are studies within this brand called Vestaire Collective. It's not a brand, Vestaire. I might be pronouncing that right. It's a high-end resale designer company. And their numbers show that the average number of sales is twice that of Europe now in Asia.
Oh, wow.
Yes. They're seeing just the beginning of what we call the Asian expansion. I think with the rise of social media and TikTok, Gen Zers who want these high-end things, but don't necessarily have all the money for all this brand new stuff, are trending toward, like, they're like, okay, let's just purchase this stuff. Let's secondhand buy it. It's interesting because Japan, to me, growing up, because I've been going to Japan since I was younger, is the only part of at least East Asia that I noticed who do resale, and they do it well, but they do high-end resale. They do
high-end, and it doesn't like smell like we love clean shit, and it like really like, I've seen used stuff there. Some of it kind of looks new, or like it's been taken care of. I think the standard is much higher. Yeah.
Yes. Which it almost doesn't even feel secondhand. It feels literally, like you said, brand new, clean. The shops also look like you're walking to a Louis Vuitton. It looks super nice. It's in Ginza, which is like one of the most expensive luxury like neighborhoods in Japan. They have like streets with all these secondhand stores, and they're very popular. And I think Japan has this like obsession with designer things. And I think a lot of it, I was going to say, and maybe you're not categorizing this as secondhand as much, but to me, the Japanese have been always more okay with Western culture. Like, they've been receptive to Western trends and cultures for centuries. They've been welcoming of it. And I was thinking that was why they were down to do this. And it was fun.
Well, like, I think since the war, there was like a big wave of like Japanese obsession with like American things, like punk rock and like the hair and the fashion and like just anything Americana always has like a thing there. It's interesting what you say about the Japanese used clothing stores looking like they're brand new and it's its own thing. Because I think even when you walk into like a second street, which they have good stuff, you can tell immediately it is a resale place, right? Because there's so many fucking clothes and it's organized by color and like, it's better than Goodwill, but it still has that vibe. And I think like the thing with Japanese customers is like, it's not that we mind buying somebody else's thing. It's just that you have to sell me the fantasy, like a strip club. You have to sell me on the fantasy that it's new and that it's nice and that it's been taken care of. So whatever you got to do to make me believe that's when I'll be comfortable buying, and I think in America, like, yes, like there's less frills. It's like Americans are cool with buying used shit, so I don't have to make this store look like an H&M. You'll buy it because the concept of resale and like Buffalo Exchange is not foreign, so you're like, I'll just buy this. But I think that's like the main thing, is you have to kind of trick certain customers into buying used stuff because we don't really want to buy it if it feels used,
I've been spoiled. I was thinking about this because how my love language is gifts, and I was like, I know it comes from my mom. My first boyfriend was Japanese. My first ever boyfriend in high school. He used to buy me Joe. Joe.
Oh, he was American? Japanese American?
Yeah, he was born here, but his mom, he's first generation. But they very, like, I always find like first generation are still very Japanese, like still carry on a lot of, Anyways, he would buy me lots of, he's in high school. Like, I have no idea how he had the money, to be honest. He's like 16, 17 years old.
Designer shit?
He would buy me. I still have the Tiffany ring he bought me. The little heart? I have the Tiffany necklace, I think. He bought me a Coach wallet. He bought me... I was just talking yesterday. I was like, what's my first phone was a Razor, like the flip phone. He Motorola, put it under, he had my sister put like a box with a Razor phone in it under my pillow and put a song. I think it was bed. It goes, not the Bedrock.
I'm gonna put you to bed. That one?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a different bed one. Anyways, it's a fucking horny ass song. So that rang, and I woke up to that on my birthday. Isn't that amazing? I was like,
wait a second, hold the fuck up. So was his dad, like, what did his parents do? Because he does not have this money. Are his parents rich?
His father passed away too, but he passed away during high school. I don't know if I should be saying all this. I think it's okay, but his father passed, and so, but his father owned a electrical engine. He would do in Torrance, he would put all the electrical lighting stuff for all the Japanese restaurants, which there's a lot of in our in our hood. So, but I think they did have some money because the mom then invested it in real estate and things like that. But not like he grew up like most of my friends. Like it wasn't like.
Did he have a job?
I don't remember him having a job, but I do think that he just saved everything, and he wasn't buying. He wasn't buying shit for everyone else, but he had 2 older sisters, which I always think boys who have sisters tend to be better partners, and I think they just knew the value of a gift.
Wait a second, but you as a 16-year-old, I don't know how old you were. I assume you were like 15 or something.
Yeah, 17.
When you got a Coach wallet or Tiffany Netflix, that's some. I mean, what is that? I almost feel like that's too much sensation. Were you overwhelmed? Because I think a woman who's 33 would be like.
No, I didn't even
You're
recognize.
Like, I deserve this, and I'm 16. I deserve this.
Dude, when you're given the best from the top, you don't even know what. Like you're just like you're like, oh, this is just like it is what it is. This is my life, and
this
I guess
is like
from
an
now
anime,
on,
bro. This is I've seen like in anime they always do like a caricature of like a rich boyfriend and her like spoiled girlfriend, and like they always like do this thing.
He's not, but that's what I'm saying. He was a very middle class. Like he didn't wear designer clothes. He didn't drive a nice car. He didn't even have his own car. Like it was just about buying for me. About buying designer pieces, and I thought, okay, it's because he's Japanese. Like I just associated
did you
the
sell
Japanese
those things.
No, that's what I said. I've been wearing the heart neck ring my whole trip here. I wear it all the time. I still wear it and I love it. I wear all my exes rings. I have like 3 different rings. Like it's a mix match of other exes rings.
Oh my God. You're like, it's like, you're like Thanos from Avengers, but they're like different men who've died for you, whose hearts you've broken.
Yeah, man. I got spoiled straight from this top. I didn't ask for any of this. I just got, I
don't want to get too off topic, but how do your I don't want to get too off topic, but how do your current boyfriends or whatever, like how does Luke feel about you being decked out in things that other people bought you?
He doesn't necessarily care, but I had my long-term ex used to care. So he would do this thing where he'd buy more nicer things so that I stop using the older things. And so I think there was one bag that I love, this tiny Louis Vuitton bag that my other boyfriend gave me. And I loved carrying because it was a perfect tiny size and it's super still nice. And he'd be like, oh, don't carry. He's like, don't carry that. I'll get you. So he bought me this like really fancy other bag. And I told him I would, I was like, okay, I'll get rid of this other one for that. But I never did. And now I still carry that tiny one. I'm glad I never got rid of that tiny one because
for you, it's not about the money always. It's about the emotion.
Yeah, I think it's just a nice thing that I was like treated to. So the person I date now, I would say again, is the least kind of, they don't care necessarily about brand. They like nice things, but they don't like care about brand things. And they kind of like get me like, I wouldn't say designer pieces. They're kind of in between designer. It's not like, okay, like the Prada, there's the Prada, and then there's this brand called Miu Miu, which is like,
I know Miu Miu. It's cute.
Okay. It's like the sister. Yeah. It's cute. Very cute, but it's kind of the younger, it's supposed to be more like entry level, which is crazy. Cause it's still like $1,000 or something for a pair of shoes, right? Like it's still very expensive, but he'll ask me what I want, and it's like he will probably get me that one thing for like my birthday. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like he's not like
so much. I'm getting so much anxiety, and I'm not even dating you. I'm getting so much anxiety. Oh my God!
Why?
Like to be expected to buy these crazy brand things like for every fucking holiday.
I'm not expecting it. It's just like that's what I've been given. I don't know what to say.
You know what? I wanted to ask one last question that I thought we could just both do real quick, to wrap it up. Do you have access to your Mint? I was wondering if we could compare how much we spent on clothes since
Right now?
2023. Well, I just pulled it up on Mint. You can just filter
let me
it or whatever.
I spent $1,091.
Oh, that's way less than I thought it would be for you.
Oh, dude, I am so cheap with clothes now. Like I used to shop so much. I don't shop as much as I used to. Like this year, I've been saving. I've been doing good.
Where are the vendors you're going to? Like where you've been spending most of your money?
Well,
or
on
is it
this
kind
trip,
of all over the place?
it's really all over the place. I went to Out of the Closet. I love going to Salvation Army. This place called Cheapskate. This is like when I was selling my clothes, I would go in and then I end up purchasing shit too.
You buy more shit.
Trade. Yeah, exactly. Nordstrom's. I love Nordstrom's.
How much were you spending at these places?
Nordstrom's. I mean, this might not be fully connected to everything. Okay, I went to Bloomingdale's. I spent $400 for 27. But you know what I do? I told you, like, I purchase and then I feel bad and then I'll return shit, especially when I don't have money. How about you? How much have you spent on clothes?
In this year, since January, I've spent $350 on clothes.
Oh,
and
that's...
It's not a lot.
What?
I used to spend way more, but this is because I don't have like a full-time job. But a lot of it is ASOS. I buy a lot of stuff on ASOS and I return them. So I see a lot of like the green things. I'll just buy a bunch of shit because it's free shipping. So I'll spend like $180 at ASOS, but then I see here like I return like $90 worth of stuff.
Yeah,
I bought North Face shoes for $140, Second Street $42, Uniqlo $43, Crossroads $36. So this year
nice.
I got into thrifting a little bit, but yeah,
wow,
you're right. I mean, I'm not buying a bunch of shit. But I did actually start buying some stuff on eBay. Like this weird college shirt that I have. I like weird college shirts. So
Cash Cuties, send him your old but nicely worn college stuff.
Should we wear our fans' clothes?
Yeah, like actually their clothes.
Yeah, we gotta get a PO
stuff.
Box. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we need to get a little PO.
Anyways, well, we're both being really good. I don't think anyone needs to be spanked this week. I think we're both doing really good.
No,
and
I would love
thank
to
you for
see
this lovely lesson.
Yeah, did you find it interesting? What do you feel about all this?
Yeah, no, I because like I think there's a lot of people who are like sort of like semi into fashion, like I am. Like I'm not really into it, but I still care. But I never really think about like the industry. I never think about where my money's going or like where my clothes are going when I throw it away or whatever. So I think like. No, for sure. I think like resale stuff is the way to go just from an environmental thing. And I also think there's a lot of cool shit. And I heard this one guy talking about on a podcast. He's the guy who plays Els on Dave. He's a really cool guy. He is, if you guys have heard of the band called The Internet, the main singer's name is Sid. She used to be a part of Odd Future Gang or whatever, Tyler the Creator's like art collective back when he lived in LA. So they're like really cool kids from LA. And I saw this guy doing a podcast and he said the reason why he likes to go vintage shopping or resell is he was like, I hate when I go to a party and somebody else is wearing the exact same thing you wear, like the same jacket or the same shirt. And he was like, that's the wackest thing. He's like, I never want that to happen to me. But if you go thrifting, that never happens to you because nobody else has this Princeton women's invitational golf shirt from 2002. Like nobody has this,
Literally nobody, Fumi.
Literally. So I think about it from that perspective too. Like it is cool. It's fun. It's cool. It's more sustainable. And I think that's the way to go, man.
I think the first place you should really go is like your family or your friends' closets.
Dude,
I think
that is such a good idea.
Yeah, it is safe. It's pretty clean, most likely. And if it's not, you don't feel that bad about it. It's like, like it's kind of nice because it was like someone you cared about. So like, would you go through?
Yeah, like the thing is, I know a lot of like women who do this, at least in the comedy circle. They'll do like clothing swap nights where they drink wine and eat cheese and like everybody brings clothes and they swap. Like I know comedian friends who do this. And I would love to do that with my boys, but I just think it's hard sometimes for straight guys to be like, do you guys want to come over and like bring your clothes and we can do a little swap bro night. You know what I mean? It's just hard to. I think it's hard to bring up as a bro. You know.
I think you should start. I actually think. I mean, my guy friends who like are, you know, also industry people, they like give each other clothes. So it's like, hey, I have all these pieces of like clothing. Do you guys want it? And then it's like, that seems less like whatever, you know. It doesn't have to feel kind of like intimidating, I think.
Yeah, guys are not gonna fucking do that. You know what I mean?
Really?
Oh shit, my AirPods are running out of battery, so we have to wrap this up. I can't even hear you out of my right ear anymore. Anyways, Cuties, thank you so much for listening. Next week, Steffie will be back in person, and we'll get back to regular programming. Real quick shout out to our sound engineer, Domagoy, and our video editor, Matthias.
Thank you.
I never asked him how it's pronounced. I should ask him. But thank you guys so much.
We want to hear about your spending habit, guys. So please email us at cashcutiespodcast@gmail.com and tell us what financial topics you want us to talk about. Send us a voice memo, and you guys, see you next week. And until then, spend your money wisely. Bye, or have fun.